Please hold for the Vice President.
Hey, Barry!
Hey, Joe. What do you know?
I know my belly button is tight and the timing is right, sheep buddy. Good to hear from you. You ready to hit the road?
Yeah. Getting there. Just a couple of things I wanted to chat with you about.
I'm all ears, buddy, but not as much as you.
Never gets old, friend.
But seriously, I've got us face masks with our mouths printed on them for the campaign stops. Didn't shell out major clams for these choppers to keep the ponies in the barn.
Yeah, that's really something, Joe. Can't wait. Now, if we could get back to the reason I called, I want to work out a plan to address some of the demographic groups that we are lagging behind with. Most notably, the progressives, the Latinos, and women of a certain...
Barack, baby, you're as paranoid as a long-tailed rocking chair. Who do you think you're talking to? I'm a caucus. I practically have the women's vote wrapped up in my front pants pocket.
That is kind of what I'm afraid of, JB. It sounds good on paper, but let me say that the public might not be ready for it yet. Let's get together. We can see if we can get our old chemistry back. And I'll take a backseat role if and when we get Dawn Wrong out of office.
Hey, now that's a humdinger of an idea, my slender friender. But I gotta tell you, I've already promised Hunter 100 G's a year to mow the lawn. Plus, a couple of his frat buddies agreed to flat my jacks on the daily for $50K. So I'm not sure how much is left in the budget.
Joe, don't worry about the money. Michelle and I just really want to help you bring this thing home.
I think we'll be just fine, baby. But hell, if you really want to lend a hand, I'm thinking about making waffles, too.
Joe, buddy, it's not about the short stack either. We got 1 million little piggies in the blankets that are gonna need tucked in every night for the next 4 years. And I want you to be the guy, Joe. The silver fox at the helm.
Hell yes, that sounds great. We've got this donkey in the bag, B.O.
We certainly do. The Born to Be Mild podcast.
Hey, hello, and welcome back to Born to Be Mild for the week of April 19th, 2020. Here as always with Ronald Cabuno, I'm Peter Crawford. Ron, I just want to wish you a happy Greek Easter. Or should I say, Christos Anesti.
Wow, that is phenomenal pronunciation, Pete, and alithos anesti to you, which is truly he is risen for those that believe that the stone was rolled away. I believe that I got half off candy growing up because our Easter was usually after regular Easter,
Right.
So that was great.
Yeah, they never put the peanut butter eggs on half off. They realize that nobody cares that it's after Easter. They're like, yo, these are still just as valuable as they were 2 weeks ago.
Oh, absolutely, and they're just basically getting rid of the Christmas
exactly.
trees.
I'm pretty sure that Reese's...
people were still buying
They just
those
have a bunch
until
of
last
people
week.
filing off the ends of the Christmas trees to turn them into eggs. But I bet nobody was expecting a little Greek lesson when they came in today.
But really, the Greek Easter was the biggest holiday of the year growing up. It's one of the biggest in our calendar, and I am missing the family so much this week. I just wanted to give a shout out to any of them that are listening. Hey, hello, and love you all. I did get to talk to a lot of them this week because we had Vivian's birthday party via Zoom. That was pretty freaking cool. Yeah, exactly. So we had a lot of viewers and we had a lot of comments and everyone was enjoying themselves. I was like, this is so wonderful. This is technology working really well, even though I was having a frantic time figuring out whether I needed to use FaceTime or Zoom or
these
Facebook
first world
Live,
dilemmas.
you know, depending which platform was going to reach the largest audience. And I don't mean that in a pompous way. I just mean I don't want to hear from Aunt so-and-so that she got left out. So, you know, if not everyone has an iPhone, you know, FaceTime is out. So we chose the Facebook Live, and it ended up being a really cool thing, and she smashed the cake all over herself, quite delicately at first, but then Dad was able to show her how to get it done.
There you go. I thought it was cute. I joined in with the birthday singing. You didn't hear me, of course, but I sounded like a maniac singing at my phone. But you know what? It's just nice every once in a while to put one of those check marks beside a good thing that social media did for me today.
Yeah, they are far and few between. I started seeing myself get into completely unnecessary altercations on the Facebook this week, and I was still seeing them out to their completion because I felt really good just boom roasting these folks who were like bringing up QAnon stuff, and I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe I'm friends with you, but I'm totally going to take you behind the woodshed because I have 10 extra minutes.
You've got way more than that, probably.
But I was... Right, but that's just it. It's just like, I do not need to be doing this, and I slap myself on the back of the hand, and I've gone a couple days without it.
Yeah, it's tough. I try to walk away from it usually, but with all the extra time and all the controversy that we have in the world, I'm
Exactly.
like, oh, what the hell? I might as well argue with this guy about nothing important. So,
all right, so I mean, we can get into that, but I do want to say that my kid just flipped a switch when she turned 1 year old. She is an absolute monster all of a sudden for no apparent reason. She is climbing on things. She is climbing on things and then up onto other things. She thinks she's the oldest 1 year old I've ever seen. It's amazing. She's a beast. She's so smart. She went for her, 1 year checkup, and she has flying colors. Everything is good to go. She is 99th percentile in height, so she is an absolute beast.
A future linebacker.
No doubt. Well, no, I mean, height, you don't want to be a tall linebacker. No, you'd probably be a defensive end, or a wing player in the WNBA. So we had a really great family week in general. I also wanted to mention, and a shout out to my mom and my stepdad and my Aunt Faith, because they were on the local news down in Fort Myers, Florida this week for making group meals for their condo development and all the elderly people that are shut in and live there, and delivering them by golf cart once a week. And they had a special news segment on them down there, and it was freaking awesome.
Nice.
I was so proud of them. Yeah, I was like, you guys just cannot stop doing good things. Like, they are so altruistic and helpful and just loving people, and they can't stop being that way no matter where they're at or no matter what condition. So I appreciate it, and hopefully just a little bit of it rubs off on me, because I think it has, but we can all do more.
So shout outs to them. Shout outs to all the Greek people today celebrating Easter. Sure. Shout outs to people who have 1 year olds. Shout outs to people who argue on social media. I think we're covering our bases here.
Shout outs to all the Eskimos, as
That's
old
right.
dirty bastard
Shout outs to
would
any
say.
linebackers who happen to also be very tall.
They are the rare breed. Now, if we can get back to the fact that we are finding ways to politicize, demonize, and ostracize for the virus and for the reopening of this country in ways not even fathomed to you and I.
That's what we do.
Just a week ago.
I mean, this is politicized like everything else from the very beginning. But the ways that we keep reinventing,
but they're finding new avenues,
new ideas weekly to politicize it in a brand spanking new way that we hadn't even discussed yet. It's unbelievable, our ability to keep reinventing the wheel when it comes to arguing online.
Well, and in person. Can I just say that shout out to all of the Michigan militia members for showing all these Ohio protesters how crazy is actually done.
Yeah.
And then you see the president backing that up with his own tweets and words. It's mind-boggling. It's so irresponsible, and it could very well lead to violence.
Well, it's divisiveness based on party lines. And so Trump is going to buy into one side. And yeah, these people are, for the most part, conservatives, Republicans are upset. We've got 22 million Americans filing for unemployment. I mean, they really want to get things moving. I understand that. But the way that they're doing it, and Whitmer's going through a lot up there in Michigan. She's a Democratic governor, so she's really getting a lot of pushback from the right. But, I don't think Ohio's being outdone. Our capital has been swamped as well. And we've got a Republican governor who's done a great job up to this point with making sure that we've responsibly handled the public health care crisis that we're dealing with. But lately, last week in particular, he's had windows pressed up against his glass just of angry Americans. People, mothers with their children. Yeah. There are viral images everywhere. And it blows my mind. They want to reopen the country, but about half these people are wearing masks. So are you scared or are you not?
Those images look like a zombie apocalypse, don't they? It's like really scary
It does.
stuff.
I think that joke is probably been made ad nauseum that does. It looks like a zombie apocalypse, like they're trying to get into the Capitol building, clawing like something right out of Walking Dead.
For the literally hundreds and almost thousands of you listening out there, I want to thank you very much. We hate the fact that the coronavirus and the political fallout from it has dominated our show for so long, but it's like, what else are we going to talk about in extreme earnest? I can tell you about how I have been wearing some blue boxer briefs lately, and the fact that I have had frequent laundry because I'm shut in and slightly decreased my shower frequency. It seems like I'm wearing these every day. We can talk about things like that, you know? But I really...
No, it's a story when I do take a shower.
It's a story, but it's not the story, right? So, like... I want to get back to really cool, easy breezy stuff, but I do want to get this really important stuff out of our system. So we do have to talk about this. And
we have to, because it's dominating every aspect of society.
And it is creeping into everybody's lives one way or another. Do you think that DeWine has been spared the rod a little bit simply because he's a Republican governor? Like he would have gotten more pushback by now if he was
I don't
a
have any
Dem?
doubt of that. Yeah.
That stands to reason.
He was able to kind of get kind of a statewide
consensus
approval going on. Yeah, because you've got Dems saying, hey, you're doing this the right way. And you've got Republicans saying, oh, you're Republican, so whatever.
Yeah, that's all that matters to them. Hey, you got the red tie on. One of us. All right.
I like that lapel.
You got it. Yeah, you have a flag pin on your lapel, damn it. No tan suit. But anyways, so, we do have declining cases, of COVID in, what was it? With the state?
No, actually nationwide at the beginning of the week, they were starting to see a couple days where there was a decline in how many cases were reported, versus the day before. However, they've kind of changed the way, about halfway through the week, might have been Thursday, they changed the way in New York first, I believe, but don't quote me on that, but they were one of the first ones to adopt this new way that they actually measure who it qualifies as a
the presumptive
death.
Cases.
Yeah, so there was a huge spike on that day everywhere that people started changing their the way that they were defining these deaths and their reporting. It doesn't mean that suddenly everything got worse. It just means that we're counting things differently, and we need to keep doing what we're doing now.
I was watching Wine with DeWine, and Dr. Amy was trying to explain it to us, and they were trying to make sure they were as transparent as possible by saying, here, we're going to have the running tally, but we're also going to have it broken down that it is old metrics plus new metrics equals total number. So if you still want to look at it and go by that trajectory of the old metrics and not, feel jostled or jolted by the number change, by all means, it's all there for you to understand. But then you have controversy over the numbers and how you get to them, like in terms of whether or not a doctor gets to categorize somebody as being a COVID patient or a COVID fatality. I don't really believe that they're in staff meetings before every day when they're up to their ears in really traumatic cases saying to themselves and to others in their staffs, we need to bump up this reporting so we get more funding. I don't think that it's conspiracy ridden to that degree. So I would like to trust that when somebody categorizes a case or a death that hasn't had the chance to have a positive test administered, that they are doing so to the best of their professional judgment. Yeah,
the increase in testing, like I said, the way that we're constantly reevaluating, redefining how we want to categorize who's died from this disease specifically, these numbers have fluctuated. But in general, and Trump has said overtly that he thinks we're over the peak. Now, you can take that with however many grains of salt you want to, but the bottom line is that the measures we've been taking have been working. The massive spike that we had, like an 80-degree curve going on when this started getting bad here, has started to move to a more flattened area. And that's good news. No matter how you want to report or change your reporting, don't panic on that. Just keep listening to your governors. On that note, we're having we've got the governors who have the pressure from their people, but you've got kind of a governors versus Trump thing going on right now about when they should reopen.
Well, it's going to be a phased-in reopening because it's not going to be this grand reopening thing that he might have some people reimagining. Now, they came out with their 3-phase plan at the federal level, and we saw a 3-phase plan at the Ohio State level this week. Right. And they're both really broad and common sense type things. But what you're seeing is that a lot of the social distancing and protective measures and preventative measures are going to have to stay in place for some time. So when we want to talk about how we have seen the peak and we have flattened the curve and we want to use all these terms, what we're saying is that these measures have been effective, and that we have to say that hand in hand with that is that taking them back will then reverse the trend as long as the virus is still present in any way, shape, or form, for one, and for another, if we don't have proper measures for contact tracing and the amount of testing that is necessary.
Yeah, and that's the big fear from health experts across the board. Opening too quickly is just going to mean another resurgence, and perhaps a worse one in this case.
Did you see that it was like Philadelphia, that obviously they were the notorious city that had one of the worst cases of the 1918 flu, but it was really spurred because when they thought they had it licked, they had this giant parade in the city and everybody contracted it from that. So like, it's essentially like celebrating too early literally bit them in the ass. So that's the kind of thing you don't want to see. You don't want to see the bravado, and the bravado plus the antsiness starts to mean you throw your mask aside, or you're not washing your hands, or you're not careful, because
right. It's human nature.
And it does get grueling, but we need to make it the new normal. It has to be like we have to have giant signs in public. Like, it needs to be on every street corner, like, so that people are almost shamed into not doing it, kind of, for at least a little bit.
Well, that's not going to happen.
If you want to release them back into the wild, you have to put guidelines out them for them to look at on a regular basis, I guess.
Well, people need to understand that just because we're going into a slow reopen, that doesn't mean that social distancing efforts should be paused. It doesn't mean that most of the actions we're taking right now to be safe should be thrown away. It means that they've been working. We should still abide by those things, but maybe now it's okay for you to go to Target when you need to buy something without going crazy about it. It's got to be a gradual reopening, because we don't know how quickly, or how we're just looking at numbers that we have. We don't know how quickly anything could flip if we start doing everything too quick. And that's what everyone is so eager to do, because they've been cooped up. They want it to be an off to on switch. And then all of a sudden they're riding roller coasters at Cedar Point.
Exactly. And you have people talking in the press conferences with DeWine about when we're going to have, and if we're going to have, sporting events. And come on, guys. First of all, if you have sporting events, it's going to be no fans. So be prepared to watch on TV only. Second of all, if you do have the sports, is it going to be college when these people aren't even being asked to come back to school, but you're going to ask them to come back and entertain you? That's right. Not going to fucking happen. No. So it's obviously just going to be the NFL or whatever, and that's probably not going to happen because they're not going to have the testing in place by then. I don't see it happening, and I think people are really hanging their hats on it.
Yeah, well, there's going to be a lot of people who aren't even going to be comfortable sitting at a stadium with between 50 and 100,000 people all next to each other. That's not going to...
Not happening until we have a vaccine.
We're not going to snap back
happening.
to that. Yeah, there's going to be too large a group out there who are still going to be paranoid, because when this ends, people are still going to be wary. They're still going to be scared as much as they want to do things. I wouldn't be comfortable going to a giant concert hall and being crammed in there with a bunch of mouth breathers. So
no way. And in terms of reopening, I got my call back to work that I am going back to work next week. And it is it's before the May 1st start date, but it's because, I work at an establishment that will be having their grand reopening on that date, and I am
your other work besides this.
So, I'll be going back to work, but it'll be in a limited and off and a no-touch capacity, so that's good. I feel protected in doing so, and Besides the fact that we don't have childcare for the kid and we'll have to work that out between the mom's and I schedule, I'm ready to go back.
Yeah, a lot of people are. And a lot of people were worried that their place of employment isn't going to survive long enough with no people. So getting them open quickly. I know our mutual friend Mark, who is an industrial engineer, was extremely concerned that his company wasn't even going to survive for 6 weeks with their doors closed. Luckily,
Sure.
I think they're going back to work coming May 1st. So that'll be really good for him.
So you have some places that are going to reopen that shouldn't be reopening. I saw a local story this week about a racetrack owner who was dead set on reopening ASAP, as in within the next week or so, to have racing sporting events, thumbing his nose at the authorities because he has made too many capital investments in the last few years and can't afford to sit it out on the sidelines any longer. And so he's basically sitting there saying, yes, I'm a Trump supporter and basically a libertarian, but I need handouts right now, and if I'm not going to get them, then I'm not listening to anybody.
Yeah, a lot of this push is financially based. It is economically driven. We know this, and we know that is a concern, obviously, but we've got to look at health first. And I think more than ever, we've made a lot of jokes over the past month or so, and I mean we as a country, about what is essential and what is not. We're going to have a lot more of those conversations as things start to open, because really the only essentials are going to be the ones that start on May 1st. Everything like race car tracks, that's not essential. Although, if you live in Florida right now, you'll be glad to know that Governor Ron DeSantis has declared that the WWE is essential. And that's not a joke.
Oh, brother.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Someone has been eating their vitamins and saying their
Man,
prayers.
it's Florida.
What
I don't know
the
what's
hell?
essential down there. Wrestling and bath salts, alligators.
Well, we know that McMahon has the president's ear, so he probably was able to get that in there
He does.
just as a
Well,
personal
Trump was
favor.
a former WWE competitor at one time. So,
And McMahon's wife is a political figure down there in Florida.
is that right? I didn't know that.
I think she's like a senator or something now.
That makes sense.
I swear to God. Yeah, like she's big time.
You know what? And even if she's not, she is, because we said so.
But speaking of essential businesses, how about the fact that Youngstown, Ohio might once again be the bootleg capital of the United States? Because we now have a total blockade on anyone from Pennsylvania coming over trying to buy alcohol in any of the border counties in Ohio. It's pretty funny.
Those poor Pennsylvanians. Like, almost immediately, their liquor stores were struck down as non-essentials. And we've been good in
Unreal.
Ohio. Apparently, we are appreciated.
Right, and so that we've been hearing reports out of West Virginia, out of New Jersey, and obviously out of Ohio, but all these bordering states about the influx of Pennsylvanians just looking for hooch.
You're damn right.
It's not fair. That's not right, man. That's not cool.
No, it's not. I'd be making a trip to Ohio every day. Like, hey, I gotta get to St. Clairsville before the liquor stores close. Mahoning County, Ashtabula, all of them.
I think they've made medicinal marijuana stores, a necessity or an essential business because it says
It's
medicinal,
medical.
right? Yeah. So if somebody is using that for quote unquote anxiety, you mean to tell me that Dad's not using that bourbon at the end of the day for his
I know,
anxiety?
right? I can't get a glass of single malt scotch to work on my nerves. I'm bored.
At the end of his life, my grandfather was prescribed 1 Bud Light per day by his doctor.
Really? Did he have to give that prescription to the people at Giant Eagle or whatever?
No, it was something that we brought in and we brought down to the commissary, and it had a prescription put on it when it was brought up in his tray, and it was the coolest fucking thing ever.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was amazing. But
Medicinal Bud Light.
speaking of medical marijuana, we got the 420 coming up tomorrow. In case any of the stoners out there forgot.
The most redundant 420 of all time.
Absolutely, yeah, right. You were saying, so what? If you're a big fan of chilling and doing nothing, you've really been getting it in lately, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly. all you smoker tokers out there, in case you didn't know, you can smoke all day on 420.
Yeah, really let yourself go
Yeah.
and pretend there's nothing that needs to be done, because it's true.
Just sit at home all day. Don't even worry about work.
Matter of fact, I would shut yourself in the house on purpose. Quarantine,
Oh,
if you will. No, but it's a nice holiday. I can remember when, obviously, it wasn't as popular, as prevalent, or as practiced. So it's nice to see year by year its acceptance into the broader culture happen. So cheers, and everybody do it safely and responsibly.
Yeah. So did you get a stimulus check?
Oh, we go right from weed to, hey, you got that money?
Yeah. We got to find something to spend it on, right? So
I do.
it's a segue.
So I did get it, and it was a really nice surprise. I wasn't like waiting for it, with bated breath, because I didn't anticipate the government getting it done quickly in any regard. When it got there, it got there. Next thing you know, it shows up in the account, and the wife says we both got ours, and I was like, all right. Very
I think it's
cool.
it's been hit and miss. I've got a few friends that say they still haven't gotten anything. Others that say they did. I know that the fiance here got hers this last week.
Well, it's probably because they didn't get theirs because they were waiting to have Trump's name printed on it.
Oh, yes, because the physical checks. There is a delay on those physical checks because we need to make sure, one of us in particular needs to make sure that his name is printed on these checks.
Yeah, Scrooge McDuck wants to make sure that he pinched the penny from his pocket.
How in the hell is there any justifiable reason? I could say this for a lot of Trump things, but this is so absurd. Like, this is such egoism that it's on a cartoonish level.
Now, I think that the Secretary of Treasury assured us, obviously because it's a stooge and an appointee of the Donald himself, that there was no delay whatsoever in the rollout of the checks because he wanted this last-minute implementation of a completely superfluous addition.
Yeah, you know what? I don't give a fuck. Even if it
I don't
not
buy
delayed
it.
at all.
I don't
That's
buy
not
it.
even the point.
And even if it was, right, it should just say, small dick ego, in cursive.
It's unbelievable. I don't know how you justify it. I can't imagine anyone else in that office ever demanding something so petty and ridiculous.
We find new lows, and sooner or later we're gonna reach China, folks.
Yeah,
we keep
so you
digging.
know what? That is unfortunate that people who got direct deposit, they're not going to get that signature from Donald Trump. So much apologies to you and the wife.
Maybe we can. What can you apply for a Freedom of Information Act and a digital copy?
Get the digital signature just to make sure you knew.
So I can print it out and put it on the wall. Are you kidding me? Get out of here.
Did you see that the guy in Indiana who went to the ATM? He was checking to see if he got his deposit. He looked in his account and he had $8.2 million in there.
Are you serious? Is this real?
Yes, this is for real. So,
oh, wow.
He's the guy's, he's not exceptionally well off. He refers to himself as being poor. It's rural Indiana, so possible. But he was actually good enough to go, he was expecting, I guess, $1,700. Apparently he has a kid. And he went to the bank and he told him. He was like, yo, is this right? Because if it is, I'll take it. But, and they're like, well, all we see is that you got your stimulus check. And then so the next day, apparently the error was corrected. And he said he was just happy that he got the $1,700 he was owed. And he wanted to make sure that he said all the right things, basically. He sounds like he was a good guy. But man, I got to tell you, if I just check my account and suddenly I've got 8.2 mil, I'm not sure what's stopping me from closing that account and finding a house in Mexico.
Oh, it's so tough. Just to role play it in my head right there. It feels nice. The feeling when you open up the account and you see all the zeros and it's just, ooh, yeah, I feel warm just thinking about it.
No, I got warm just looking at his receipt. It was in the photo with the story. I was like, God, I can't even imagine.
My goodness. That is nice, isn't it?
Yeah. So Trump, if you want to send us a check, go ahead and sign your name on it. That's fine. 8.2 million. I will take all of the Trump family signatures. Give them all to me.
For sure. Yeah. I'll come in person for a personal signing. 6 feet, of course. But, yeah, so I saw that there's a real disparity in the unemployment numbers between states. And you got to wonder, there should be some kind of nationalization in terms of like a ceiling and a basement for this kind of payout, because you can understand why people are getting real anxious to go back. I think I saw Arizona's maximum unemployment is like $240, but the average in Massachusetts is over $500. I mean, that is a disparity.
That's a big time discrepancy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge. I'd imagine some people are very, very pissed because they're having extended layoffs that are of no fault of their own, and they just happen to have a very bad system in place in their state. I saw that we ran out of our small business loans this week. Is that correct?
We did. $350 billion out the door. And, it was an altruistic thing to be included. Some wanted more. They're still pushing for a second stimulus bill right now. The Dems are actually looking for $2,000 a month or something instead of a one-time payment, which is not dissimilar to what they've done in places like the UK or Canada, kind of giving people a percentage of their salary rather than, one check for $1,200 like that's going to be a fix.
It's the double yang, as they call it.
What this really amounts to, with that money being gone, this stimulus, did it do anything? Was it really effective? What was the efficacy of this bill on the economy?
Great question, because...
I mean, I don't know. I don't see how there could possibly be. We're not even back up and running yet. I don't see how this is going to stimulate the economy, which is going to absolutely be in the shitter for quite a while now. This $1,200 check and those small business loans, people are still fucked.
What you're seeing are people's fears play out, where you had a one-time doling out of a couple of scraps to the people and quite a bit of money to industries. So even though these industries are still hit, they got rewarded exponentially more than individuals for essentially being just as reckless with their savings and their planning. So you have to get it going, and you have to get that stimulus to people more often. The $2,000 a month was actually a Tim Ryan, my local representative here in Ohio. That was his idea.
Representative.
And so I was trying to get him for a little conversation, but he's a little tougher to get than the mayor of Struthers.
He is. I've gotten Tim Ryan before, but that was when I was working with EIC back in the day. So I've met with him.
Yeah, bigger institution than the Ron
slightly bigger than the Born to Be Mild
Bedroom
podcast.
Foundation or whatever the hell we're called. What's our LLC? Oh, wait, we don't even have that.
We don't have one yet.
Don't tell anybody. So
hey, someday we're going to have that hotline. We're going to have a red phone. If we need to talk to somebody, we can call them.
And someday you're going to get that chicken.
So
now help me throw this giant ball of oil out the window.
Yeah, people, I think at least, this is me just my conjecture, but the stimulus was more of a gesture in its own to say that we give a shit, because people are scared right now.
It wasn't just that. It wasn't just a gesture. It was like, here is some shit for the basic necessities that hopefully will get you bread, food, water, and Band-Aids for your injuries.
I don't agree with that. I don't think that's what was said behind closed doors. I bet that's not at all what they cared about. This was a hollow gesture to make people feel like, oh, our government cares. Because $1,200 is spit in a pan.
Oh, it was, absolutely. And you're seeing, like, states come up with really big solutions to people's woes right now, like Ohio trying to put an extra $600 per week into people's unemployment checks. But that is, completely besides the point as far as a national stimulus goes. As far as the national stimulus goes, I agree that they were sitting there and essentially placating while also keeping the larger industries afloat. But placating actually does mean keeping people alive and fed in many, many instances.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But I don't know that. I think it's keeping people alive and sound of mind, because you don't want people. You look at the way that the groups in Michigan and Ohio that we talked about earlier, these people are losing their minds at home. And by keeping a regular contact point with them, sending them a check, it shows that there's still a connection here. They don't want us devolving into anarchy, because the paranoia level across the board right now, I mean, Christ, like 2 weeks ago, some dude in like suburban Chicago literally killed his wife, or his fiance, excuse me, maybe it was his girlfriend, whatever, and then killed himself because he was so scared that they had the coronavirus. And of course, upon autopsy, neither of them did.
Oh, that's the worst part. That
Terrible.
is the saddest irony.
But that's people losing their minds,
And it doesn't help that you have people from the top down, once again, kind of promoting that kind of stuff. But we can talk about the virus possibly leaking from a lab in Wuhan if you want to get to the biggest conspiracy of them all right now.
We have to talk about that for sure. We don't know a lot yet, but this is really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, so what we do know, or that we do know that we've heard, is that one idea is that this thing was leaked from the Wuhan Institute of Virology. And I think we talked about it on last week's show, maybe about how they were talked about as having some breaches in the past in terms of their standards, and they were bumped up to this one special level of research, I think after SARS, because it was a great place for them to do their research. So they got some real high permissions, and they were fooling around with all kind of bird flus. And some people say that maybe one of their research workers, one of their lab assistants, screwed around in the lab and contracted this thing, passed it on to her fiance, and then they went to the wet labs, or they went to the wet markets of Wuhan and then infected some kind of animals, and that's how the virus began. And that her record has been, or that her information has been stricken from the record from that lab, and that is where conspiracy theories begin.
Yeah. And I guess this is kind of a story in progress. The one thing that it needs to be noted, because this is definitely going to be a conspiracy bomb across the nation for people who already had their tinfoil hats on. Now they're going to be positive that this was intentional, malicious. As of now, the reports are still that it was not man-made.
No, it's absolutely not man-made, okay?
Yeah, so
but then
you can't...
the fact that it could have been leaked out of the lab, a lot of people are saying is like a 1 in 1,000 case. A lot of people are saying that it was probably just a zoological mutation, or whatever the hell it's called, from one species to another. Yeah. That's what they're saying is most likely. And if you want to have this conspiracy theory where it was China's lax standard that caused this whole thing to go down, then you can go down that road if you want to, but reason stands that that's not how it went. Same goes for, like, I was listening to the New York Times podcast this week, and there was this dude who's been there for 15 years, and he had to leave the country because they kicked out all the reporters recently, and that is real news. You know what I mean? Like, not having absolutely any media presence from the Post or the Times or anywhere else in China right now because of how they had been reporting on China's practices thus far is not good at all. And so this guy was going around, and he was getting, like, almost in fights with Chinese nationals who were like, "Go home, foreigner." And he feels that it's because China is spreading these kind of rumors where all the infections and the original infections are coming from foreigners. Like, they're like, oh, they're saying that one of the top conspiracies over there is that during the war games that went on, I think in Korea last fall, someone from the U.S. military came and planted this virus over there. So it's on both sides.
Yeah, no, it really is. And it's not even just about the disinformation that we know that China's putting out there. They've been opaque to no small degree about exactly what's going on. There's been almost zero transparency. And people knew that. We thought they were underreporting their deaths. But now, one of the big things, because of what's happening...
It was a pretty good presumption.
Yeah. I mean, we kind of knew, but the more and more that we're hearing now, it's like, well, what else don't we know? And was the WHO enabling some of this? So now Trump has halted aid to the WHO, which has garnered some large, from other nations around the world and from liberals here, some large controversy. And people are wondering, why? Why now? And is the WHO really an organization to not be trusted suddenly?
I think it's ridiculous, and one of my conspiracy theory nutjob friends on Facebook was like sharing this globalist quote from the founder of the WHO, and it was completely taken out of context. And it was basically the guy came back from World War I as a sniper and a scout and decided to go back for his PhD and understand child psychology and study this. And he was a totally good dude. And all he was saying was, listen, I think that in times of like global pandemic, you have to put aside family traditions, you have to put aside national identity, and you have to work as one unit. And so, like, he was able to find this one clip where it was like, no, man, the WHO's been founded on a globalist conspiracy. You know, it's like, no, I think that they were actually a benevolent environment, or they're a benevolent organization from their outset and continue to be so. But sometimes you do have things that seem to be a cover-up. And there are truths that can help Trump's narrative that actually are nothing more than business as usual.
Yeah, there are shades of gray to the entire story.
When China came out this week and said, yeah, there was 6 days before we said that this thing was going to be a pandemic, the fact that you didn't think people were doing things behind the scenes, especially in that authoritarian regime, to like get all the barricades up and ready the troops for when this rolled out, like, is beyond reproach.
Oh, sure.
Obviously, they were doing that, but Trump wants to say that it was just the same as him sitting on his ass for 3 weeks after he closed China travel and washed his hands of it and said, all right, that's it, we're good to go.
Right. And
those are not the same.
That's wherein we're seeing a lot of the, as we started this out with, politicization of exactly where people stand here. And
it's
Trump
the blame game.
Trump is kind of saying, yeah, he's saying, well, now you can't blame me for being slow to react here because I was being given false information from the WHO and from China, who are in cahoots and they're all corrupt. And a lot of the Republicans are siding with Trump. They're saying, yeah, that's right. It was China who was wrong. However, only less than a day ago, it's now being let out that we actually 100% had intel about how dangerous this virus was all the way back in November of last year, because the U.S. was sending and sharing information with Israel about the coronavirus and the risk of what it could do to the world. Trump knew, we discussed it with another country. None of these are debatable anymore. So I don't want to hear that he didn't know. I'm glad that we can
make that a moot point as soon as possible. Exactly.
Immediately, the WHO, China, none of that matters. That's just a distraction. You knew and you didn't do anything until February. Why?
Well, maybe it's because we cut our boots on the ground in terms of the CDC in China from 14 to 3, like we were talking about earlier. Mm-hmm. It's all these factors that add up to absconding from responsibility. So in one fell swoop in 1 week, he gets to say that he has absolute power as the president. And you have even Cuomo says we were able to give him the gracious ability to walk that horse back into the barn. Like, yeah, wow, how nice of him was that?
The lack of accountability.
Within 48 hours, someone says now he's back to basically Trump before he was even president, lobbing bombs from Twitter. So all you're doing is calling people out for what they're not doing right and proposing no solutions of your own like you have been known to do for the past 8 years.
Yeah, it's been amusing to see the people are really good at digging up old tweets. Some Trump's Obama administration tweets.
They're the worst.
It's so the level of hypocrisy and duplicity. I mean, it's funny and it's also maddeningly frustrating too.
It is. And so when there were things going on like the Russia with the Russiagate and the Mueller report, anytime he brought something up and wanted to shine the light on someone else for something, it was like, oh, okay, that's what he's doing right now.
Right. Yeah.
It was like literally just that easy.
The mentality. I saw a great meme this last week proposing what Donald Trump would do if he was the captain of the Titanic.
Oh.
So in a situation where Trump was captaining the boat, here is the chronology of statements coming out by Trump. Starting with, there is no iceberg. We won't hit an iceberg. I knew it was an iceberg before anyone else knew. No one knows icebergs better than I do. The Penguins brought the iceberg here. No one could have predicted the iceberg. We cannot allow an iceberg to stop our ship. The crew is spreading fake news about icebergs. Some of you have to drown. I am the best captain.
no.
Ask anyone.
Oh, wow. Wow. That is horrifically prescient.
It's so farcically real that, like,
At least we'll have something to laugh at.
Yeah, it's like the Youngin
right.
stories where you're like, did he really do this or is it fake? Like, one can't see the difference anymore. There's no line.
Oh, I need a nap.
So, yeah, before we move on, one more important thing I wanted to mention regarding the coronavirus is the way that healthcares have been simultaneously championed in this country, and then you have that small sector who apparently they don't know a single nurse or doctor in their personal life, saying, how come there's no photos of packed hospitals? How come there aren't lines coming out the door in my local rural tiny hospital of people dying of coronavirus?
Yeah, it sucks. Like, people's lack of imagination and empathy is quite boggling at times.
It is. And you've got reports coming out. I mean, we've been, like I said, championing these people because we know they're risking their lives. But currently, and this was actually a number from the middle of this last week, more than 9,000 of them, and this is just the ones we know of, are infected with the coronavirus. So, yeah.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, like,
putting their lives at risk.
I remember about a month and a half ago or something, it was that Italian hospital where they said they had 400 nurses homesick with coronavirus alone in one hospital. So, like, right now we're looking at a quarter of Ohio's infections being healthcare workers. So they are literally at the front lines, and luckily this isn't like the 1918 flu where it affects people in their midlife disproportionately, or we'd really be having something. Oh God! So don't even get me started.
Yeah,
but
that's huge.
Yeah, I mean, so luckily they're able to weather this storm, but it hits them really hard still, and it's not good to have that many people out of action when we need them.
I just think it's got to be so tough for them on a psychological level, going into work knowing that today could be the day. They're watching others die, and some of them really are heroes. I've got a couple friends who are actually traveling nurses going to New York right now, going right there to the epicenter.
Yeah,
and they're going to be working.
I saw this week that 10 nurses or something was suspended in Santa Monica Hospital for not working with no protective gear. Like, they didn't have the adequate gear at work, and so they were on a strike and refused to work.
That's when you get frustrated that there's so many people out there hoarding and price gouging those N95 masks. Like, some of the people who have N95 masks, these things have to be, like, properly fitted to your face. Otherwise, you're completely wasting it for no reason.
Well, N95 mask is not rocket science. I've been using them for a very long time, and they work just fine for the general public because they were made for the general public. So
correct.
You put them on and you fit it easily. And I know people talk about, they're like, oh, I had to get my fitting checked or whatever. It's like, yeah, because maybe you're a moron. But, like, it's not difficult to find out whether or not the air is seeping in when you're breathing in real hard. You can do it. I promise. I've done it a million times.
Well,
but
I don't have the kind of faith in other Americans that I might have in you.
I don't either, but I'm saying they're made as foolproof from the manufacturer as possible.
Sure. But even then still, I saw a photograph of a Republican lawmaker who I will not name at this second, but he was wearing the mask upside down.
On his head. It was it was like a yarmulke.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I believe you. And yeah, you do see the price gouging. There was a dude in Chagrin Falls that got arrested for price gouging N95 masks on the eBays just this week.
I mean, if you're one of these people, if you're one of these fucking scumbags, like, just do us a favor and, like, I really shouldn't say anything too horrible right here, but God, like, I literally hate you. I just can't.
Homeboy was selling 10 packs for $350.
I mean, what
and
a
he got
crock of
15
shit.
people to buy them before he got stopped.
Yeah, this isn't you, like, scalping tickets to a Pearl Jam concert, you know?
No,
this is people's lives.
This is, yeah, exactly. You dangling the antidote right over a sick person's face until they empty their pockets.
Right, yeah. If you want to go out and, you know, hoard and price gouge on a new Nintendo Switch controller collector's edition, whatever, you know, do that. Fine. But not masks, not now. No.
Exactly. This is not a Tickle Me Elmo situation.
Yeah, exactly. If anyone is old enough to get that reference... What year was Tickle Me Elmo?
How old is that? I guess it's probably
like,
year 2000.
It's like 90s. I don't know. It was in the 90s.
Yeah, we'll have to Google that.
I get Tickle Me Elmo and Furby mixed up because they both had like a couple years there.
I do not get them mixed up at all. Sometimes you might be able to say Furby and a Tamagotchi. But
okay, maybe. I was too old for all that stuff at the time, so.
I was right in the wheelhouse, that's for sure. 1996, the Tickle Me Elmo.
Tickle Me, yeah, see, that's old, man.
Freshman year for me.
That was a sophomore year for me, so quite a while ago.
Yeah, you can say that again.
But yeah, we pretty much, one other thing I did want to mention, George Stephanopoulos has come under fire because he tested positive for COVID-19, but he's completely 100% asymptomatic. And so everyone is screaming, like, why did they waste the test on him? Why did they do? Well, the reason is because his wife had already tested positive for it. So people who are at risk, especially high-ranking,
high-profile people, sure.
Media. Yeah, so
Nana Boo Boo to all those people. His wife already had it. Shut the hell up.
Right. So you get tested.
Get out of here.
And the thing is, it's so crazy that he is 100% asymptomatic because according to what she's saying, she is absolutely sicker than she's ever been in her entire life.
Exactly, and that's how that thing works. That's how the flu works. It is all about personal susceptibility, and it's wild.
It's scary because, and the report coming out of Iceland, they did a test on about 5% of their population, where apparently it's roughly 50% of people are completely asymptomatic, and the other 50% get hit by a semi-truck. So
right, and then that's where you have that cascading severity of symptoms.
Exactly.
Where it's everything from flu to mild pneumonia being the quote-unquote mild side of things, and then everything thereafter, the ICUs and the yada-yadas, is the worst. It's really scary, and it's something we're going to have to continue to worry about for some time now. So everybody stay safe. That's all I can say.
Absolutely.
What else do we have going on? We can talk about politics. There's a little bit going on with Biden adopting some of Bernie's ideological policies.
Yeah, he's looking for one of the policies last week that both of us were only partially on board with, maybe not so much, which is student loan forgiveness. I would like to see him focus a lot more on the healthcare side of things, but it's interesting that I feel like he's being pressured in a way to start to adopt some of these more progressive policies to try to win back that vote that right now he is in danger of not getting.
I would like his new nickname to be Empty Vessel Joe.
Empty Vessel Joe.
because he is essentially there for your filling up.
Yeah.
Like whatever you need.
Right in your own policies.
That's right. So whether it's Obama bending his ears on the sideline or someone a little more progressive like AOC saying, listen, if you want the entire progressive caucus and all us ladies to be on board, you're going to have to give us this, that, and the other. You're going to see a coalition president, I think, if he does indeed win.
Right, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. He's gone out and said, not only has he already told us about the having a woman for his vice president thing, but also he's only going to be a one-term president, apparently. Not
wow,
something
I didn't hear that.
You didn't hear that, yeah. He's actually stated that he's only going to be a one-term president. He only plans on being a one-term president.
Talk about knowing your limits.
Well, I mean, considering he's being kind of knocked around a bit for being senile already, and as we did a little bit in the intro today, so not a bad idea to throw that out there.
But exactly, but like that could be used as fodder, but it can also be a redeeming quality. You could see that either way, so I don't know if it's good to put that out there to begin with.
So yeah, I wanted to add a little bit of levity for a change because we sit around and talk about people dying due to a virus for a whole show, and every once in a while it's good to get into something else. So we're at home a lot right now. That's no secret. Watching a lot of TV, a lot of movies. I've watched pretty much everything on Netflix at this point, like all of the movies. But I was sitting around wondering. I was starting to think, like, is there a certain genre that I can always watch? Because what's your favorite type of movie or whatever? And I get really into scary movies. And I started categorizing movies into different groups, and I put together a little head-to-head quiz for movies that are alike for whatever reason, whether it's a shared
You put together
actor.
A quiz for us to do right now on the show?
Yeah, well, just for you, actually. I want to hear your opinion.
Just for me, one-man answer.
Yeah.
All right.
And you guys could all answer out there, but For one reason or another, I associate the two of these movies together. And maybe you haven't seen all of them, but I'm venturing to guess that you've seen most of them. So, are you ready?
You know, I am. And matter of fact, I just had a renewed interest in movies just this week. I had gotten really sick and tired of flipping through Netflix.
Sure.
So I
We
think
all are.
on Sunday night even, I downloaded the TCM app. And my God, it's everything I needed. Like, it's classic Hollywood goodness. It's not a frenetic pace. It's great acting. And it's a time in history that you don't mind going back to and revisiting for large swaths of time.
TCM is Turner Classic Movies, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I watched the original A Star is Born
Oh,
with Judy Garland.
isn't there like 4 of them?
Yeah, I think there are 3. So there was that one, like a 30. There might be 4, but I know there's 3 for sure. But it was really, really good.
I might like that, actually. I enjoyed the Bradley Cooper Gaga film from a year or two ago.
I'm sure that was great.
It was pretty good.
If it was anything like the original, or if it, even maximized the talent of them two, because they're both really, really talented.
Give me your preference. And if you haven't seen one or the other, you can just say, I haven't seen such and such. But
This is going to be embarrassing because I probably haven't seen a lot of these.
you're going to
Go
have
ahead.
seen most of them.
Okay, all right.
So, and you'll probably get the link right away. But let's start off here with, I've got Wayne's World versus Austin Powers.
Right. So just going by age alone, I like to go with the grimy, gritty
You're
Wayne's World.
You're an earlier 90s guy, the Wayne's World stuff.
Yeah. Well, it just has a bigger sticking point for me in my life.
It actually does for me
yeah.
too. And but I still lean Austin Powers a little bit. I like that first movie. I think it's very clever.
I think Austin Powers, in terms of jokes per minute, is like through the roof. And in terms of personalities that they introduced into the culture, because it was so commercialized, it had a lot more staying power. But I still have to go with the organic beginnings of Wayne's World through SNL.
Yeah, that's more of an SNL statement. For me, the other thing I was going to say is if we're looking solely at the character that Mike Myers is playing, I think the Austin Powers character is more interesting than the Wayne Campbell character. But that said, when you throw Garth in and the other characters in Wayne's World, it becomes a real competition. So,
Well, I would say to that the character of Wayne might pale in comparison to Austin Powers, but I care more about the mission and about the environment that Wayne is in as compared to Austin Powers. So I cared more about the movie. I cared about like the relationships and about how real it was and about how he had a licorice rope dispenser in the roof of his car.
Right.
Like this was all stuff that was so much more relatable than like the cartoonish aspect of Austin Powers,
Yeah.
which was cool.
It was.
It coincided
it
once
felt
again
90s.
with the rollout of the new Mini Cooper, so another capitalist venture gone well. But I think it has staying power for a lot of the promotional reasons other than the actual, like, I don't know, the actual artistic ones.
okay. I feel that. Yeah, I agree about the nostalgia factor of Wayne's World. I love that movie as well. I just give a slight edge to Austin Powers. So check for Wayne's World for you. Okay. How
Right
about
on.
Pulp Fiction versus Django Unchained?
Pulp Fiction for me, just because it started it all off, and I can see the seeds of
Well,
Pulp Fiction in Django
Reservoir
so many years
Dogs
later.
actually started it off, but yeah, I know what you mean. Pulp Fiction was huge.
Yeah, it kicked him off in a way that we were only able to appreciate Reservoir Dogs after the fact.
Yeah, a lot of us,
because
that's true for.
Pulp Fiction brought it to us.
Again, we're disagreement here. Django is one of my favorite films ever, and it's my favorite Tarantino film. I really, really, really enjoy all the performances there.
I would say that I think I enjoy Django more. I agree. I just think in terms of importance, Pulp Fiction is more important.
Okay, so this isn't a movie, actually. Two series verse one another. Breaking Bad or The Sopranos?
Oh, very tough, very tough. I mean, one of them they both captured the imagination of the entire country, but one of them brought to light an entire community of people or a caricature thereof that was really celebrated. Like, we didn't see a real celebration of meth makers after Breaking Bad like we did for just good old fat Italian people after The Sopranos.
Okay.
So having said that, I can go back and watch Breaking Bad and it doesn't seem as stale, maybe because it's that much newer.
And it's more concise. The show is shorter. So
it is, and they fit a lot of things in, and The Sopranos was just worried too much about breaking ground because none of it had been done before, so they had nothing to work from like Breaking Bad did. No legacies to build off of, and they can probably attribute a lot of their greatness to The Sopranos.
Right. Okay. So you're going to go with Sopranos for the most part, but more watchability for Breaking Bad.
Yeah. If I had to pick one to watch forever, it might be Breaking Bad.
I would agree with that sentiment almost perfectly, I would say. That's about right.
Okay.
That's how I think. Okay. We'll make this an ongoing series. I'm going to do about 2 or 3 more.
I was going to say, but Wire over everything.
Oh, yeah. The Wire is fantastic. If you haven't watched The Wire yet, get HBO for a month and watch it.
And just so everybody knows, Vivian has officially joined the podcast. She is sitting here so nicely on my lap right now and not saying a darn thing. It's so cute.
Well, if she has
She's
an
just
opinion on a
watching
movie,
us talk.
let her chime in.
Okay, well, unless it has something to do with Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, she's good.
She probably hasn't seen either of these next two.
All right.
And you can look at them as the entire series of movies. But Friday the 13th versus A Nightmare on Elm Street. This is really about which horror character you think is more interesting.
I think it's more about which approach you think is interesting, the one with comedy or the one without. So Freddy brings the comedy, Freddy brings the funny. Jason doesn't slip on too many banana peels. He's not putting out any one-liners.
The first Nightmare on Elm Street is a little more serious with Freddy, but after that, yeah, it gets really goofy.
It's very comical thereafter, exactly. No, the first one is horrific, and it's so great.
Yeah, it's just outstanding. Introducing Johnny Depp too in that movie.
Exactly. So if you want to talk about stories, I would say Jason has a better backstory. If you want to talk about characters, Freddy is a better character. Freddy is a scarier character because he can actually go
In
into
your dreams.
dreams.
Yeah, because that's terrifying.
So, it's Freddy hands down because Jason's just an undead dude who's just mindlessly walking and killing.
Agreed. 100% agreed. And some of the later Friday the 13th movies, they get really stupid, but the kills get really original. They're so over the top. But Freddy is just so goofy.
Oh my goodness. Jason Takes Manhattan, when he puts the basketball dude's head into the dumpster, it will stay in my mind forever.
These are like a boat for that entire movie, I feel like. I love the third Freddy movie when he comes out of the TV and slams the girl's head into the screen.
Oh my goodness.
And he's like, "Welcome to prime time, bitch."
For sure. Or how about when all the wires of the motorcycle go into that dude's veins?
Oh yeah, yes. Oh my god, that's so disturbing.
It's so bad. And I saw it at such a horrifically young age, inappropriately young age.
Yeah, me too. My mom didn't even care. And there's boobs and whatever. And
yes, there's a lot. There's so much wrong with it.
Yeah,
my godparents took me to see Terminator 2 at 10 years old.
I saw it when I was 11. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So it's just yeah.
I think, I do. I have that one later on this list. You know what? Let's move right to that because we agree on Freddy. Terminator 2 versus Predator.
Well, I was always far more Terminator 2 than Predator because I wasn't old enough for Predator 1. I was more Predator 2, and I wasn't even on board for that. So I gotta go Terminator 2.
Terminator 2? Okay. I really like both of those movies, but I also say Terminator 2.
And another thing is Terminator 2 lived in my brain for about 5 to 10 years before I saw Terminator 1, so I didn't even know Terminator 1 existed.
Oh, well, there you go. I mean, yeah, I saw Terminator 2 way before Terminator 1. But that's because of our age. I mean,
right.
When Terminator 1 came out 84, it's I'm not going to be. So
there was a big gap between those movies, exactly.
Yeah. All right, and the last one, and I'll give you Goodfellas versus The Godfather.
Okay. I would have done maybe Goodfellas versus Casino.
I would have too, but I think everyone is going to say Goodfellas there. So I'm just going with what I think are probably the two greatest mob films of all time.
Gangster mob films.
Yeah.
I didn't make it through The Irishman, so I'd probably still have to agree with that sentiment.
Yeah, I didn't either, actually. It's really long. So is The Godfather.
Yeah. Yeah, but something about The Godfather is nice, slow pace. Just like a lot of those TCM movies, it wraps you in a different way.
Yeah.
So if you're not ready for The Departed, that type of shit, then you're gonna just be like, all right, I can't do this.
Or even Goodfellas, it's paced so much quicker. Everything is boom, boom, boom. It's just Scorsese versus Coppola. Just completely different filmmaking from different eras.
Yeah.
So I'm Goodfellas all the way, actually, and I love The Godfather, but Goodfellas is maybe a top 2 movie for me.
Nice.
So
I'll have to defer to you on that one because I don't even have a favorite.
Well, I'm Italian, so I'm required by law.
I'm from Mob City, USA, here in Youngstown, and I am of Italian descent.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
That doesn't
Youngstown
mean I have
is
to come down on one side of the fence or another.
Yeah. We can continue this series as a little escape at the end of each week, but I think that's good for now.
That's fine. I think that's great. And you can bring the questions because obviously I got the opinions.
Perfect. And Viv, what's your opinion? You sound like a Godfather girl.
She was actually just asking me what's up with these, what did you say? Oh, yeah, she wanted to watch Dinosaur Train.
Oh, Dinosaur Train. That's up there. Well, after that, it sounds like she's old enough now to watch some Nightmare on Elm Street, right?
I'd give it a couple more months. We're literally dealing with sleep training right now, so I think it's a bad time to introduce those nightmare-inducing
I swear to
films.
God, I was 7 or 8 years old when I started watching those movies. My mom did not give a shit. Well, good luck with all that, and good luck with, I guess, holding off for another, what do we got? About a week and a half before May 1st, so we start the slow rollout.
Next time we talk, I will have already gone back to work, and so we'll get to talk about that. I'm sure there will be some real fun stories for how I'm trying to avoid the virus while I'm going about my workaday habits.
Right. And for anyone else who is starting to go back to work, just keep in mind that we're not through this yet. So keep being safe, keep social distancing, keep yourself and your family and your friends and your loved ones as safe as possible.
Yeah, I think that goes without saying that we need to keep this at the forefront of our focus until there's a vaccine. This is the time where we have to start finding out how responsible we can be going back to our daily routines.
I agree. So until next time, everybody stay mild as the week goes on, and we will see you next week.
One more thing, I just ask that everybody stay understanding of one another and just take a deep breath before we respond.
All right, everyone. Take care.
See you guys.
Again, thanks for having us. Thanks to Ryan Little for our theme music. Find us wherever you download podcasts. We'll see you next week.